Good afternoon. Welcome to the African American Portraits of Leadership event sponsored by CSU Libraries. My name is Michelle Jones, Head of Reference Services here at Columbus State University. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator. Sherricka Day is an art enthusiast and collector, youth mentor, and community advocate. Sherricka works as a consumer complaint coordinator at AFLAC. She has been recognized as one of AFLAC's top volunteers, Georgia Trends 40 Under 40, Columbus and the Valley's 5 Under 40, and an American Red Cross hometown hero. She is the founder of Minor in Business, a nonprofit organization that provides kidpreneurs with a platform to learn about entrepreneurship hands-on. Her ultimate passion comes from connecting and working with youth and by being a positive role model that they can look up to. She contributes content for Black Art in America, a leading online portal and network focused on African American art. At this time, our moderator, Sherricka Day, will introduce today's panel.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. So I will get right into it by introducing our panelists. I'm just excited to have this discussion, so let's jump right in. We have Roberto Mighty. He's the executive producer and director of Portraits of Purpose. Roberto Mighty is a filmmaker, television producer, multimedia artist, and musician. Two of Roberto's new original TV series, Getting Older and World's Greatest Cemeteries, are scheduled for nationwide public television in fall of 2021. Roberto's short films have been awarded Best Documentary Short at the Roxbury International Film Festival and official selections for the Hollywood International Shorts Festival, the Atlanta Urban Media Makers Film Festival, and the Arlington International Film Festival. Last spring, Roberto produced coronavirus resilience training videos for Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. Roberto is America's first artist in residence at the National Historic Landmark Cemetery. Roberto earned his MFA at Lesley University in 2011. He was adjunct professor at Emerson College from 2007 to 2018 and Boston University Center for Digital Imaging Art in 2012 to 2015. So let's welcome Roberto Mighty.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Kamau Marshall, Director of Strategic Communications with President Biden. Kamau Mandela Marshall is a communications strategist, Capitol Hill veteran, and political operative who comes with a decade of experience in communications, outreach, and engagement. He most recently served as the senior advisor for the Presidential Inaugural Committee and was the Director of Strategic Communication for President Joe Biden's 2020 presidential campaign. Recently, he served as a spokesman and an advisor for African American media at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, where he was a team member that won back the House in 2018 for the first time since 2006 and flipped most seats from red to blue since 1974. He also served in the Obama administration as a speechwriter and communications advisor at the United States Department of Agriculture. He is an alum of the Obama 2012 campaign, where he worked in Nevada and Texas. Marshall has a bachelor's degree in journalism and a master's in public administration from Texas Southern University. So let's welcome Kamau. Up next, we have Valerie Richardson. She's Workforce Investment Act Program Director for Columbus Technical College. Valerie Richardson is a seasoned higher education administrator, visionary leader with a unique sense of cultural awareness and extensive experience in leading, developing, and implementing educational programming in higher education, corporations, nonprofit, and government agencies. She works with local and regional community leaders and resources to grow the reach of higher education attainment. Valerie is the proud product of a military family, primarily raised in Columbus, Georgia. She traveled extensively with her family during her childhood to duty stations throughout the world. She received her Bachelor of Science degree from Spelman College in Economics with a concentration in organizational behavior, master's degree from Troy State University in Management and Public Administration, and is in the process of completing her dissertation for a doctoral degree in higher education and leadership at Columbus State University. So let's welcome Valerie Richardson. And I am not sure if Michaela is on, but I think that is everyone from our panelists, so we will get started. So good afternoon, panelists.
Good afternoon.
Happy to have you all here. So we are going to jump right in, and what I'll do is I will, I can just call your names to make it easier so we're not like talking over each other, and then ask a question and we can just go from there. And so, Mr. Mighty, we'll start with you. The question to you is, what is your role as an African-American leader?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be in such amazing company with the other panelists and those of you who've organized this event. As far as being a leader is concerned, I don't know about all that, you know, I'm just out here doing the best I can. And, but I will say though that, you know, I feel like I'm part of I am part of a long tradition of Black folks who are out there doing their best and trying their best to, honestly, to model good behavior in public. I have to say that growing up, there were some fantastic role models, you know, starting with my own parents, of course, then my older brothers, then like the older people in the neighborhood, just all kinds of civic people, you know, your teachers, if you're a religious person, you know, the people at church, and so forth. I also come from a military family, Valerie, and we were posted at quite a few places. And that's something else, you know, people in that community. And I feel that strongly that, like the people in this film that I was so proud to be a part of, when you get to be visible in the public eye, I just want younger people, you know, since I'm only 22 myself, you know, I mean, people, I do feel a responsibility to not act a fool in public, you know, and to keep my stuff tight, you know, as we would say, and at least to try to appear to be righteous, you know. So I think, again, just like those people who did that for me when I was growing up, made such a huge impression on me.
Yeah. And Valerie, we can ask you the same question, especially with you all having the military background in common. So what do you feel like your role is as an African-American leader, or even examples from those who may have, you know, been an inspiration to you?
In all things that I do, I try to mirror the positive examples that make me who I am, and in all things, be the example that others are watching so that they are able to move forward and take the best of me with them to find the best in someone else. So just making sure that I am always the best example of who I can be, who I want to be, and who I am moving forward.
Right. And Kamau, the same question to you.
One, thanks for having me again, and I'm glad to be on this esteemed panel with some great individuals. I will say, one, I'm not military. However, I moved around as if our family was military, even living in Columbus, Georgia. I will say, a role as far as African-American leader, I would say I'm a leader in training. I'm still growing, still getting better, still learning, being a sponge of life. And I think I know that I'm pretty blessed for the opportunities that I've been presented with in life, and the folks I've had the opportunity to work with, who are models and leaders to me. I mean, I just think back to some of my previous bosses, like Congressman Elijah Cummings, Congressman John Lewis, just to see those guys, to be in their presence of leadership. It sprinkles on me, and I try to represent not only myself and my family and friends and everyone else, but also those folks, those living legends who are African-American leaders. I try to represent them every day in what I do and what I represent, while being authentic and organic in who I am, especially for my generation, showing that you can still be who you are, and you still can be a respectable person, but still being that citizen that we all need to see, that we want to see in our people. So in short, I'm a growing leader for our community, and I hope that I'm making my ancestors and our community proud as I continue to grow and be a leader in this space.
Yeah, that's very crucial in seeing yourself as a growing leader, because it's very important to continue to like build off of what you experienced and then share that with others. So I think that's awesome. The next question is, what important themes do you glean from the documentary? So this time we'll start with Valerie. What did you gain from the documentary?
Well, first of all, I apologize. I didn't say thank you so much for including me. This is a wonderful opportunity. So let me throw that in there real quick. And without taking up the entire time, because there were so many things that I walked away from watching with almost every person that was included said something that stuck to my heart. I think the young lady that said, listen to your inner rage and be a warrior for change. It kind of just motivates you to want to go out and change the world. And I that really stuck with me. The other was, you deserve the opportunity to learn and to serve.
Yeah.
And I think our children need to hear that every day, all day long, because it's so easy for them to become disillusioned in the environment that we currently live in. So I thought that was really big. And you belong here.
Yes.
So many times our children think that we're not supposed to be here, or we're not expected to do our best or to be great or rise above. So that you belong to be here really struck a chord. Also, the young man that talked about being present for his children.
Mm-hmm.
That really kind of tugged at my heartstrings. And lastly, I told you it was almost everybody. Don't ever lose hope.
Yeah.
The entire thing was just so inspirational. So those were the things that really stuck out to me.
Right. Those were all powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Mighty, we know you had produced it. What stood out for you in putting everything together?
Well, first of all, let me say that this film was, the product of a massive effort, primarily headed by a photographer named Don West in Boston, and a civil rights advocate named Libby Shufro. And Don West is a news photographer, and he actually photographed these people over decades, for various newspapers and all that. And that was the genesis of that project. And I was honored to be a part of it.
Yeah.
What stood out for me was taking all these people together and having them come into my studio. That was really something, because if you live in this town, where we all live, these people are legends, already. Like, they're very well known, and so to have them come in, and they're also friendly and like normal. I don't know if you've ever met someone that you idolize, and there's always that moment when I don't know what you expect, but they had so much grace. They treated everyone around them with respect. Everyone was, that was just wonderful, and then also to see that their commitment, I believe they would say something like all of us have said here, that they were thinking of their role models, and what they wanted to pass on. Several of them are educators, as you saw, and they were very much imbued with that spirit, that passion to pass it on to that next generation. That stood out for me.
Okay. Kamau, you get the same question. So anything different or on the same lines of what has already been discussed?
It's a lot on the same lines that have been discussed, but I would say the biggest thing that stood out to me that was something that when I looked at it again, is the historic journalistic photos in there. And for me, that kind of, resonated with me when I looked at it. It made me want to go back and view it again, just, want to learn more about everyone that was a part of that project. And again, hope, especially in the times we're in right now. The message of hope was very, very important. I would say those are the two things that stood out to me.
Right. I agree. There was a lot that stood out to me too. I know this is about y'all, but I'm gonna jump in real quick. But the discussion, and I can't remember his name, but the young man that said he didn't realize, I guess, about race until like second grade. And it was, you know, they kept talking about minorities and how he didn't see himself. He was like, well, I'm glad I'm not a minority. And it was like his parents had to, you know, make him see like, hey, yes, you are, you know, and explain that, and just how different that journey is for African Americans. A lot of times we just, when you're young and innocent, you have no idea, you know, a lot of times we're oblivious to, you know, the world out there until there's one of those moments where somebody has to kind of shake you into what we're growing, that what we have to go through, you know, and realize that things are different for our journey. So that stood out to me, because I'm sure we all have a story in that where, you know, there's something that made you realize like, okay, they're treating me differently, or, you know, I have to tackle things a different way. So that was mine. But I'll throw it back to you all. So, and this has been touched on a little bit too in the conversation. What does it mean to be a mentor as an African American leader? So, Kamau, we'll let you go first on this one.
Sure. Right now, I will say, I feel like a mini celebrity in my little world in DC, being a mentor to so many young folks, and express to them the struggle. Because when people see the work I've done, they just see the pretty stuff. They don't see the ugly side. They don't see the struggle. They don't see the hard stuff. They just see the pretty stuff. And I wish it was all pretty all the time, and it really is not. And as I'm still growing and getting better in this space, but being a mentor, especially right now, is very crucial. As particularly being an African American mentor, especially to African Americans or people of color, because our society is going through a racial reckoning right now. Yeah. And as we've experienced multiple uprisings, multiple killings, et cetera. The folks that I mentor, they want to talk about messaging. How do you speak to folks in these times? How do you speak to young folks in this time, working in media and press and with different leaders? And so, you know, I never have enough time to kind of sit back and think about being a mentor. I just do it. It's just one of those things you're not even paying attention to. You're just doing it. But just as I'm talking and thinking, reflecting, I think it's very impactful. And as I'm speaking, I'm just realizing how those moments, those calls, those coffees probably are very impactful to a lot of those folks that I have mentor and continue to mentor. Just to get that time with them is priceless.
Yeah.
And I think, but I'm also paying it forward because I've had, and I still have, some great mentors that have invested in me, make sure they were guides for me. And so I think everyone deserves to have a mentor. I think everyone needs a mentor. Mentoring does not stop at any age. And so I think that what does it mean to be a mentor as an African-American leader? It's something that is priceless. It is something that will be perennial. It'll always keep going. Something that I think we all need to take serious. It's just like that's how some people feel about therapy. I think everyone should have a mentor, and different kinds of mentor. You just don't need one mentor. It's different mentors for different things. But particularly being an African-American leader mentor is very crucial, especially to the young folks. And so again, that's something that as I'm speaking, I'm just really reflecting on it. Like, you know, you do it and you don't even pay attention to it. You just kind of do it and keep moving. And it's not a question folks ask you every day about that. And so it's now like, you know, what is it? How do you feel being a mentor? And so this is a great question. I'm definitely going to reflect and eat on this some more.
And sometimes you don't realize you're in that position, you know, just have people looking up to you. So that's really good. Mr. Mighty, if you want to take that same question.
Well, I just want to pick up on a couple of things that Kamau said that were so on point. You know, one thing is that you never stop being able to be mentored. You know, at my age, you know, there are people that I look up to. And the funny thing, it's a real kick in the pants when the people you look up to in a certain field are actually younger than yourself, you know, but they've really been focusing on that thing to the extent that they know way more about it than you. And the wise person says there is no such thing as age, you know, there is such a thing as experience, right? So, you know, I look to people who have more experience in certain areas, and I look to them for advice and for, you know, help. As far as myself, you know, I've taught for many years in colleges, and so that has sort of an official capacity as a, you know, as a teacher and all that. But nowadays, I'm actively reaching out to people. They don't even have to be young, you know, people who are interested in the kinds of, you know, stuff that I've done for several years now. And I'm eager to share. Again, I'm eager to share because all along my journey from the time I was little, there was, you know, that lady up the street, there's that gentleman who worked at the community center or whatever, you know, who would take me under the wing and say, yo, little man, you know, come over here, you know, don't do that, do this. You know, oh, thank you. And that is a sacred, I mean it, I feel it's a sacred trust and a bond. And that I feel very strongly about continuing to pass forward as long as I can.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good skill to have as a mentor, paying it forward. So Valerie, if you want to take that same question.
Let's see, what does it mean to be a mentor? I think for me, always making sure that I am that kind of wise and trusted counsel. Because if you're going to mentor someone, you want to be the inspiration, the motivation, that constant for them, that platform that lifts them up when they think they can't go any forward, pushing them forward. Those things to me are most important. Making sure that, again, what they see is what I'm saying, not only my mouth, but my steps carry me to do and say what I'm telling them, and then make it easier for them to repeat those words and those steps. But more than anything else, making sure that what you say, you stick to. If you say you're going to do it, you do it. You never let anybody down, because your word is your bond, and that shows your character. And those are the things you're trying to instill in someone, whether they be younger or older. If you lead by example, you'll be the best mentor that any person could be lucky enough to come across, because that's really all they're looking for: someone authentic, trustworthy, of good character, and good determination.
I totally agree with that. So since we're talking about inspiring others and leading others, how do you encourage someone to embrace their leadership? Like, have you ever run across a situation where maybe a student or someone you were working with, you saw the potential in them and they didn't see it in themselves? How do you get that person to embrace their leadership? And so, who do I throw it to? I'll throw it to Valerie.
You know, it's funny that that was one of the questions, because I'm going to go back to the original piece by Mr. Mighty. With literally every person that was a part of it, they said something that is directly related to what do you do to make someone take on a leadership position. It's the encouraging them to go beyond what's expected, inspiring them to think critically about other ways, better ways to do things, making sure that you encourage them to be better, and then being that example that you want to see in them, so that they're comfortable stepping out on faith and believing that they belong,
Right.
they can do.
Right.
And just, again, paying it forward. That's what we should be doing for everyone, showing them that they can do it and do it better.
I agree. Mr. Mighty, do you want to take that question? How do you get someone to embrace their leadership?
Well, thank you. And again, Valerie, wow, that was great. You know, I just want to pick up on that. That's so key, that a lot of times the leader, the inner leader in a person, and let's say in this case, perhaps a younger person, you know, we can see that it's there, can't we? But we can see that they kind of don't see it. You know, they don't have that confidence. So I really would just add on top of Valerie's excellent point that sometimes the role of the mentor is to just say, as simple as, yeah, I know you can do this. You know, you got this. You know, or in the immortal words of Obi-Wan Kenobi, use the Force, Luke. You know, I know it's within you. I know it's in there. And the truth is, a lot of times, or sometimes, unfortunately, not every, especially younger person that we're going to meet, has had enough people saying you can do it in their lives. You know, maybe they've had, in fact, a bunch of people saying you can't do it, you know, or you shouldn't be here. Again, to pick up on something else that Valerie mentioned, you know, or you know, this is not for you, you know, and so it's, I think mentorship involves a lot of times just saying, yo, come on, you know, you got this.
Yeah.
Without being, you don't want to send people out there unprepared either, right? You know,
Right.
but be sure if it's raining, be sure the kid has a raincoat on, you know? So that's critical. But I do think though that confidence, if we are perceived as being successful, that's a big if, you know, we want to just look at other people and say, yeah, okay, well, yeah, just put one foot in front of the other, you know, every morning. That's how I got here.
Okay. Kamau, your thoughts on that question?
One, this is hard to come back after hearing great answers on it. Number one. Number two, it's also, this is really a tough question. Why I say that is, as a person that is, you know, I've always been told you're a leader, and I was the type of kid or a child that would say, yeah, whatever. No, I'm not a leader. And you just kind of, you know, you're going about what you're doing. But honestly, it's when you do realize that when you're effective at doing something and someone, as folks mentioned, you can't see it. So having that mentorship, when someone is encouraging you to embrace leadership, they see something that you can't see. Listening to those folks, especially someone you trust, when they're telling you something like that about embracing your leadership, and how they see something that you're doing well and you're being effective and efficient while doing that, tapping into that and getting better. And so I think for me, when I tell folks to just step it up, you know, figure out the style of leadership styles, look at all the different types of leaders that they see around them and learn, but also continue to be to lead by example and to embrace it a little bit more. You know, I think it's good and bad when you tell someone, hey, you're a leader. It's just like you're telling someone, you are, I don't want to say a dictator, but you're like a person of power. Some people abuse it. Some folks are very modest with it. And yeah. I think we all appreciate the person that's modest with that when they're in that leadership role and they're not abusing it and they're, you know, they're sincerely trying to do their best at leading. And so identifying those folks who, you know, that are going to be effective and efficient, but also not abuse their leadership and making sure they are leading by example. I think that's the biggest thing. Make sure to be authentic and genuine with those folks, tell them to embrace their leadership, but not to abuse it.
Right, definitely. And I think one of the key qualities in a leader, I want to say all of you have mentioned it, is listening. You know, paying attention to the person that you're trying to help, and just sometimes it's a matter of just being quiet, you know, and just looking to see what is it that they need or how can you guide them. Somebody told me years ago that listen and silent have the same letters. But in order to listen, you have to be silent. Like if you rearrange those letters. So that's key a lot of times into being able to guide somebody and help them out and just, you know, help them to get along the path that they're trying to go along. So great answers from you all. So we're going to go back in time a little bit to, you know, maybe a few years back prior to maybe you taking on a leadership role or being a mentor. So is there anything helpful you wish someone had shared with you years before you got into the role that you're in now? If you could take it back, something that you just wish somebody had said, like, oh my God, you need to do this or that. So I see wheels turning here. So before I throw a name out there, does anybody want to take that on? or I'll have to call names. So we'll start with, Mr. Mighty.
Okay. So you just rephrase the question one more time, please.
Yeah, so is there anything helpful you wish someone had shared with you years ago before you got into your current positional role?
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you. Yes, the big one. So as it turns out, to do what I do professionally, on one hand, takes years of technical knowledge and training. But then the funny thing is that once you know how to use, the cameras and the editing systems and all that stuff, then you need to forget that. It's amazing. In order to rise higher in my field, I need to forget like exactly how I'm operating all the buttons and switches on the cameras. I need to forget what I'm telling my crew to do. I need to focus on what the program is about. What's the message? And so I think somehow I fell in with a bunch of geeks, nerds, and gearheads, which is kind of what I am, deep down inside. And what I really wish that I had fallen in with sooner were people who were more like producers and writers who were just focused on what's the big picture. It's easy to say after many years of learning all the tech stuff, but I do think though that big picture is really important. And I'm beginning to think it's important in any field, and I know that you all can speak better to that, Good to know the tools, but you gotta know, am I building a house or am I building a garage?
Yeah. Okay. Valerie, do you want to go next?
Sure. I think the one thing that, and maybe someone said it and I wasn't paying attention, but I wish that someone would have said to me, listen to your inner voice. So many people, if you're blessed enough, are pouring things into you, helping you to become the person that you are, because you become a product of all of your life experiences and those aunts and uncles and members of the village that treat you as family and make you a better person. I would love for someone to have stopped and said, you know what? You're okay. You've been taught by the best and trust what you've learned. Hear that inner voice and go forward. You're going to be fine. I would love for someone to have said that to me. And again, not that they didn't, I might have bent you headstrong and didn't hear it.
Right, definitely. Kamau, I saw you like really digging deep into that question.
Yeah, this is a big question. I mean, I definitely have a lot of things I would ask mentors and about things now, and I wish I could go back and ask those things. But I think the biggest thing is asking them about one, remaining faithful, and keeping my tenacity in tough times, when you're being discouraged, and when you are standing out, but you're also trying not to stand out. How do you move in different spaces, during tough times, during controversy, and stick to it? And it's like, that's just one of many of the thousands of questions that I was just thinking as you were asking the question. I was just like, oh man, I don't even know where to begin. I definitely have some questions that I would like to ask. And I think as I continue to do what I'm doing, and what I've learned, it doesn't get easier.
Right.
It doesn't get easier. And, asking that part, as you rise, can you tell me about the hard stuff? That, again, people just see the pretty side, but they don't see the hard side, the real work that goes behind things, and, sticking to it during those tough times.
Yeah.
How do you maintain your sanity? How do you maintain your focus and still do great work in the midst of folks who can be probably tough to work with, et cetera? And so I think that's something I would have asked if I can go back in time and do that,
Yeah. So your response just triggered a question. With last year, with everything that was going on, we saw the, more attention being brought to Black Lives Matter, and, it's just a whole lot happening last year. So how were you able to maintain your sanity, your cool, if you did, I don't know, maybe you were, behind closed doors, losing it, but what kept you going, kept you encouraged, and helped you to get through what we saw happening last year in the Black community? So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I don't mind kicking that off. I will say one thing for me was knowing that I've been here before, and it's probably going to happen again. Sadly.
Yeah.
And remember my time in the play. I was born in Chicago. I lived in Baltimore. I lived in Pittsburgh, but I lived in Birmingham, Alabama, but particularly Columbus, particularly Chicago, Baltimore, and Birmingham. Those places of struggle, where the individuals there, they don't have anything to lose. When I think of Birmingham, the civil rights movement, just being around there and just all the things they endured. When I think about Baltimore, it's a tough place, and particularly my time with Elijah Cummings during the Baltimore uprising. For me, I've seen it before, and so I was actually pretty calm in that space, and figuring, one, how do we, working directly with on the Biden campaign, working directly with now President Joe Biden, and how do we speak to people in this time? One, let's acknowledge what's happening. Let's not be quiet in these times. For me personally, I took that in. I didn't really have time to really reflect the way I probably wanted to, because I was at work and thinking about others instead of myself, and thinking about, one, how do we, and working with a person who's trying to be the leader of the free world, how does this person talk to people in this critical time, doing these uprisings, doing all this racial reckoning, the shooting of Black men and women. And so for me, I think how I got through it was, one, turning the pain I had internally into a passion and a purpose. Something I got that from Elijah Cummings: pain, purpose, passion, and using that to effectively communicate how I felt internally, but to the masses through a leader. And I think at the end of the day, I definitely would just check in with colleagues, because it did hurt. It did affect us. I mean, honestly, to this day, I still think about those things, especially as a Black man in America. I think about it all the time. I just stay silent on it, because it's not something that I'm able to speak out about right now. And so, honestly, to answer your question in short, Tara, I went over, is that, look, I poured my passion into what I was thinking in past experiences, and tried to help others cope with it, and honestly meet the moment.
Yeah. Mr. Mighty, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, that was beautiful, Kamai. And so one thing I thought about a lot last year, as it happens, in this past 2 years, right after I finished working on this Portraits of Purpose project, I then spent 2 years creating a documentary about Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King, from their childhood up until the time they met and got married. And if you want to feel humble right away, you just study people like that in their lives. I mean, these are two overachievers, to say the least, at every point. And so when I thought about what was happening last year, I felt most vulnerable when I was driving. I felt most vulnerable when I was driving in my car, going places, especially at night. And, I've got, I'm in my 60s, I've got, I've got white hair, but I knew darn well that wasn't going to protect me from anything, but I was actually concerned, and I began to make plans for us for being taken out, unexpectedly. And so one thing I did was I literally made funeral arrangements for myself. I told my daughter where where all the good stuff is in the house, you know. And I said, okay, baby, now, you know, here are the, you know, certain, you know, account numbers or whatever that you need to have. And I tried to be very systematic about it, you know. And so that really was a big help to me, was actually planning for my death. But also, in a less macabre note, perhaps, looking and studying as I did last year so much about Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott, before they were married, right, Coretta Scott. They were so strong.
Yeah.
And you know, Valerie spoke to that role, being that role model, you know. And you know, my own parents, talked about traveling through Florida in the 1940s. Come on, you know. And so I really felt that I would be, I'd already told that I was afraid, okay? I'll cop to that. I was afraid. But I also felt like I would disgrace my family if I didn't still drive where I needed to go, you know, and do what I needed to do and appear wherever I needed to appear, that I needed to honor all the sacrifices they had made, you know, and all the sacrifices all the civil rights leaders and workers, you know, had made for all 400 years, by the way. So that was key. But I'm not gonna lie, I was, you know, concerned.
Yeah. Let me just ask you this real quick. Do you feel there was more concern with the last year versus maybe other periods of time that you know, have experienced those same type of moments?
Sherricka, that's a great question. And I will say to you what I've said to friends and family. I have never felt as vulnerable in my life as I have in the past 8 years. You know, from the moment President Obama was elected, I felt a shift. And I do travel quite a bit in my work. And I just felt a shift when I'm driving around. And then, of course, after the most recent administration, I'm not even going to say any names here. I can't say that name. After that administration, it got much worse.
Yeah.
And Kamau spoke to the unfortunate vulnerability of Black men and women and children, by the way, children. Yeah. Somebody pepper sprays the 9-year-old girl, that person ought to be put, as my mother would say, my late mother would have said, that person needs to be put under the jail.
Yeah. Yeah. Valerie, did you want to jump in on that question?
Yes. When it first started and really kind of took steam, in my lifetime, I had not really experienced that type of groundswell. So initially, I was hopeful that this was going to do what the protesters really wanted to have done at first. Then I realized, because the news cycles are so quick now, when I say we, I mean the country watched different opinions on different channels about what was going on, and the message got skewed. So we lost sight very quickly of the point, and as a result kind of diluted the power of what was going on. And then my excitement turned to fear. Much like with Mr. Mighty, my husband and I started talking to my son again a little differently. We weren't speaking as we had in the past. I became very fearful of him being out in the streets away from me, because this is his freshman year in college. It just seemed as though the atmosphere in the world changed.
Yeah.
And that what was going on in America was accepted by our leaders and okay. So we as African Americans became seemingly very expendable. And it was glaring to me. So that was scary. And you do start to prioritize
Mhm.
what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, making plans for what you need to take care of because of the way things are presented to you as things are going on.
Yeah. It was a very scary and exhausting time because it was back to back to back that we were, watching, our brothers and sisters treated different ways. And for me, I had to literally like disconnect for a while from TV, from social media, because I just couldn't. I was like, I can't read it anymore. I can't see it anymore. It got to be too much. And so I can relate. And my mom, I'm way grown. And my mom would call more than normal to make sure, I just want to make sure you're in the house. Is the door locked? Is this, if she hears me like riding in the car, are you out? You need, I just want to make sure you get. So I think most of us were on edge because it was a scary, and still is, because I can't say, I think Kamau has said it. This is, just one, it's like a wave. And so it'll die down for a little bit, but it'll come back. So it is just scary, that we have to be extra precautious. And so how do you discuss that with your mentees? How do you prepare them for these type of moments? Whoever wants to.
Before we move away from that, I do want to say one other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, in the space that we're in, we also see how the positivity of what Black Lives Matter was trying to do in the wake of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And that is now being used negatively to explain away unacceptable behaviors that have taken place in the last 30, 60 days. And again, the narrative is being twisted to accommodate what one side wants explain away.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if you feel powerless to get it back on track.
Yeah.
But that made me think of that. I will, if you don't mind, take the question of what do you do?
Yes, ma'am.
You start the conversation. And you start the conversation where your mentee actually is, their life experience, and get their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And start to converse, start talking about how they feel, what they think. Because oftentimes we think as a mentor, we're just providing wisdom and knowledge and we know everything. But there's so much to be learned from the other generations. These younger generations see things so differently than I do.
Yeah.
So I have the ability to learn if I'm open to that and understand that I'm going to be better for engaging where that person is, but also teaching them our history. I think just as a culture, we have gotten away from teaching our history. We have allowed society to determine what our history is.
Right.
And our children or our mentees need to know so much more and be armed with that to take them forward so they know not to ever give up that fight.
Right.
Not to ever give in, to always strive for greater and better, because that's what we're made from.
Right. Definitely. Kamau, do you want to take that? Like, how do you prepare, your mentees for what we've experienced? Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. I think that one, listening to them to see what they are, as Ms. Richardson said. And so I think that finding a way for them to meet the moment, but first, before doing that, listening to them where they are. So one, you know what to say, but that listening part is pretty critical in this whole thing, because then you can be that advisor on possible ways how they can meet that moment and understand how they can be who they are in this moment, but also letting them know it's okay to feel. That's human. It's okay to vent. It's okay to express your way properly amongst different individuals because we're all human.
Yeah.
And I think that listening part plays a role in that because then you can identify your weakness in this moment, how it made you feel, how it makes you feel, and how you can move forward with helping others cope. And so I think that I'll keep it short right there. I think that's probably the best thing that I would do, and I would hope someone would do for me in that kind of setting.
Right.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what has been said by these two has just been right on point. And picking up on what Valerie said in particular, yeah, just I don't know everything, and just because I've been at it for a while, yeah, and I certainly don't know that person's experience, right? And so I think that that's right, key. Just echoing what's been said here. Number one, shut up, listen, zip it, and then the other thing is again, Kamau also echoed the idea to be honest with how we're feeling, how I'm feeling, which is, wow, you're a 21-year-old film person interested in filmmaking, and you want to do this and that. Well, yeah, if I were you, if I'm talking to a young man, I'd say, yeah, I can understand you being particularly concerned, in certain parts of town, heck, in any part of town, walking down the street, Well, let's just talk. But guess what? I'm afraid too. At my
Right.
age, and so yeah, let's share that. So I think one thing is sharing our common humanity. That's really key.
Yeah.
Then also, just really getting there. Not everyone's going to get there the way that we got. Well, again, I hesitate to say I got. I'm not. I'm still striving. I'm still very ambitious. I'm pushing for more and more things in my own career. But whatever concerns they have, yeah, I'm dealing with that too. I'm dealing with my own limitations. I would really love to put my feet up and just watch Star Trek. I'll tell you right now, instead of working on that script. So I think, yeah, just again, I'm just echoing what these two have already, brilliantly articulated.
Okay. And we'll focus on you for just a moment, Mr. Mighty, with the project that you did, Portraits of Leadership. So if you could tell us just how did you get started with that? What inspired you to do the project?
Well, I'm honored to say that I was asked to become involved by these two people, Don West, who was a great, brilliant photographer and has specialized in journalism, for his career, which has spanned over 5 decades, and Libby Shufro, a fantastic civil rights advocate. They really put this project together, and having a film was one component of that. And they asked me to work on that. They also asked a wonderful film producer named Raquel Ortiz, brilliant person, to be consulting producer on that project. And I was thrilled to work with her as well. So they asked me, how I would do it. Now, we had known each other for a while, and they were familiar with some of my other work. And they knew that I have a reverential attitude to where people who get out there and risk themselves and, become leaders. So I'd say that some big things. I'm gonna get a little slightly technical just for 1 second. I have a pet peeve about how often people of color are filmed, like literally filmed, how we look. And we have, I'm not talking about myself here, but but people have this beautiful color underneath our skin, whatever skin tone we have. Some people have more like a mahogany color, some people have more of an ebony color, some people have, whatever. And there are certain things which we can do as filmmakers or photographers to bring out those beautiful hues the many, many shades of color in people's skin. So right away, I was really determined to do that, right? To bring out our folks' beauty. And then also, the people who were in that project, in the Portraits of Purpose project, they are accustomed to doing public speaking. They are very accomplished individuals. But I had them come into my studio, and it was very intimate. And there's some behind the scenes photos. Sometimes my camera's enormous, right? And sometimes it was like literally this close to them, you know? And I wanted to just pick up those micro expressions that people have on their faces when they're saying things. I thought that was important to help them to carry through their messaging. So besides those sort of technical issues, I think that it kind of goes back to something Valerie said. Listen. And Sherricka, you said silent listeners, the same thing. That is golden throughout life. So I just kind of set them at ease and, get them comfortable, and then just begin to ask clarifying questions. And I think those things help me to bring my vision for the project, in short, was to really get them to open up about what turned out to be their incredible leadership, over many, many decades of service, of public service.
Okay. And you did a phenomenal job.
Well, thank
And
you.
so you're welcome. One more question is, did this film meet your expectations and goals? Because you seem to always be going for, you said a few times, higher, higher, higher. So did this meet those expectations?
Well, I have to say that the answer to your question is, to the extent that I was able to work with these iconic individuals to bring out their story, yes, it did meet my expectations. But but it's really, it's their story. It's a funny, right? It's their story that I'm bringing out.
Right.
So I'm not being modest. I mean, I think a good director brings out the very best in the people on camera, and that was my job there. And I was honored to do it, and they're pretty amazing folks.
Right, right. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us about the film that maybe we don't know, or something we need to look into a little deeper?
Well, one funny thing is that sometimes we see these people, like president of the University of Massachusetts, these people have serious pedigrees, serious resumes. But every single one of them was just a regular person. And a lot of them are very, very funny. I mean, like really funny. I'm reminded of one gentleman, Keith Motley, who was the gentleman with the bow tie. He happens to be a very, very tall gentleman. And I'm pretty sure he played football. He's stout. And I'm a very, very short guy, And he comes in, he shakes my hand like, okay, ease up now, But he's a real kind man, but a great sense of humor. Like, it's really funny. Like, just one more thing, and that is, in the course of doing the amazing thing that they are now being honored for, they weren't thinking at the time, at least they told me, they weren't thinking at the time, I'm doing this amazing. Nuh-uh. They were just putting one foot in front of the other. They were, following, who was it that said passion, pain? Oh, that was great.
Spot on.
You mentioned Elijah Cummings, right? So yeah, passion, pain, and the third P was. Every single one of them said, yeah, well, it's not like I said, I'm going to climb a mountain today. I was like, well, I'm going to there's an interesting rock up there, up the side of that hill. Oh, look, there's another one a little further up. You know what I mean? And they just kept going and going and going. So I thought that was very powerful lesson right there.
Right. Okay. So I think it is time for us to open it up for.
Yes, I would like to interject. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate all the wonderful conversation. We would now like to allow any of the attendees to unmute themselves if they would like to ask questions. And if not, we can definitely have the panelists, you all can ask each other questions as well. But let's just give them a minute to see if they have any questions.
Hi, this is Dawn Frazier. I wanted to first off thank you all for this event. It's a really positive thing to have at our community. And I really value the fact that you all took the time to contribute. I guess this question, my husband and I are both listening and watching. One of the questions that we have is just about this idea of when people are thinking about the future for themselves, like what they should be doing. And maybe you come from a background where your parents are emphasizing that you need to get out and get a job and make sure that you're taking care of business. Pursuing art as a career seems to be a risky thing to do, right? So how do you push back? How do you even stay focused, and how did you even move forward and thinking that you are actually, this is a positive way for you to go? You're contributing and it's necessary to have artists from the full scope of experience in all mediums.
So is that it, Mr. Mighty? Is that for him to answer? Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah, well, thank you. First of all, thank you, Dr. Frazier, is it? Your question. And right, so my mother was, thrilled, whatever I was doing was fine. My father was like, get a job. So, and you're right, a lot of people face this tension. A lot of people who want to become artists face it. I do think, now everyone has their ideas about this. This is my idea. I think that everyone has a responsibility to support themselves, one way or the other. But then so many of us, I'll speak for myself, it's easy to spend a whole lot of time doing things that aren't contributing to our final goal. Like for instance, I mentioned, like, I happen to be addicted to Star Trek, so, I know I need to, like, if I want to get this script or whatever finished, I need to like put down the Star Trek, and just, so I think that for a lot of people, they can have their job where they bring in their income, enough income to be a contributing member of their family or whatever their situation is. But then the difference is, what about the other, whatever, 80 hours a week, and that's just how I feel about it. I think that, but I'm hesitating because I can hear all the various counter arguments to what I'm saying, and I've heard them all, but I do think though that if a person has a talent, has an ability, and I think we all have talents and abilities, but the trick is to pursue it to the best of your ability. And that generally is going to mean stop wasting time with stuff that doesn't matter. And sometimes only we can determine what that is for each of us, right? Yeah. But I think, don't you think though that what I just said applies to any endeavor, right? If you want to learn, oh, please, someone else pick up. Another panel.
Well, I just wanted to hop in real quick and say that I have some friends that are artists, and they've had it's been that same mentality where pursuing art is more of a hobby and it's not necessarily taken as a serious career. And so the same, like what you said, with just pushing and showing that you can do it, surrounding yourself around people that are in that field, that are, have the experience, to have, I guess, the clout or able to kind of, push you along. And then I think it's also up to us as friends, as in society, to kind of change that narrative, because a lot of times it does seem like anything that, when it comes to the arts, it's kind of like, you do that on the side. But the people that are very successful at it, they have put, when I think about like Tyler Perry and people that are like, I don't care what you say, this is what I'm gonna do. And, you'll have to respect my art. And so I think we have to change our mindset to respect the artists just as well as we respect doctors, teachers, lawyers. I mean, it's all a skill. So I'll just, yeah.
So
That's
Tess,
right.
I'll say one thing on this. As my brother is a musician, and I have a lot of friends in the art space, but I've noticed, I call them free spirits. I consider myself a conservative free spirit. Um, they have all identified different pathways of making sure that the work is legitimate by, various internships, just even getting in different spaces with the folks who are influencers in those spaces, in those rooms. It's one of those things that doesn't happen overnight. Nothing really happens overnight like that, but they build up that time in their craft to really research who are the key players, whether it's in their city, their state, to help them grow what they're trying to do. And honestly, it's paid off. I've seen them all pay off, from painters to musicians to different creatives in the digital space. Even my friends here in DC, they're painters, and they take their artwork serious now. I remember when they were painting stuff for free. Now they're selling their artwork for $300 to $1,000, and people are legit buying it because they identified key influencers in their space to help validate their work. But they also learn from those folks too. So I think it's a growing game of learning who's who and how do you navigate the space and work with different folks to sharpen those skills in that kind of space.
That is very true. I would just say, if you wake up in the morning and that is your passion and that's all you can think about, then that's what you do. And life is so short. You cannot allow anyone to deter you from your dream. You have to be reasonable and make a living. And I understand all of that, but there is a way to meet in the middle and get done what you need to get done and still live your passion. So you just can't forget that and put it on the side.
Yeah.
May I just add something there, Sherricka? Please. Again, what they said was great. And I do remember when I went to art school very late in life, like I was already in my 50s. And I had spent a life kind of, being practical and, up to then. And one thing, sometimes artists in particular need to be around other artists who are actually making money. So this is a key thing. I forget who was that you mentioned the word hobby in there. I forget, pardon me. But yeah, thank you, Sherricka. Yeah, it's not a hobby, right? No, you're dead serious. And you have to loudly proclaim, I am an artist and this is my art, but it's important though, as I learned in art school, actually 10 years ago, there's all kinds of ways to present yourself as an artist, which are probably not apparent to you. You probably have to learn that stuff from a working professional artist or from a community of working professional artists. So I just wanted to say that. You got to be around people who are actually doing that thing, in order to understand how you could possibly, make a living from it.
Well, just kind of in a related way, and it really switches gears actually, with the Black Lives Matter, like igniters of like some heavy conversations that people have been having in a wide variety of spaces. I think I was talking with some folks today, and they were talking about how this dude got up and said that music theory is informed by white supremacy. And that if we really want to really open the doors to people being engaged with what musical theory is, we have to deal with the fact that the dude who started it was part of this white supremacy movement, right? I don't know if folks even would have had the courage to be talking in that way without this national conversation. Well, I don't even know if you call it a conversation. Now it just feels like a battle that we're having. So I guess I would ask again, just with, or maybe in a related way, when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement and all the Me Too movement and all these conversations or sparks that we've been having about how we need to be better people, and pointing to how we've been targeted and abused, and that we find strength with each other, and just coming forward. How have you seen that kind of support in your own work? So even in the face of worry and fear, concern about safety, the times feeling like they're changing under our feet, have you felt that this is also a time of engagement that's different from where we were before Obama, I would say? That's actually a question, as opposed to like pontificating. That's not really what I was trying to do. But is that something that you felt, or is it's not really your experience?
Can I take a stab at that, please, Sherricka? So first of all, you put out some, a few things there that were all very powerful. I just like to focus on one part of it at the very end, which was, I'm just going to take my interpretation, if you don't mind. What is the role of the artist in politically difficult times? Is that okay? As a question. And I think the answer is it's tricky, because, sometimes art is about something political or something, let's say something in the news, let's put it that way, right? Something in the news. But sometimes art is not about something in the news. Sometimes art is about a relationship between two people, or sometimes art is an image of a mother and child, or who knows, right? There are some theorists who will say that all art is in fact political, and that's a whole interesting academic conversation. But one thing I just want to put out there as my comment to your statement: the role of the artist is not necessarily to point the way in society to a solution or even a commentary about something that's happening right now. I respect art that does that, but there are many kinds of art, right? And I think sometimes it's easy for an artist to be swayed by speaking to the moment. And just to key in on something Valerie said at the very, very, very beginning of this whole conversation today, sometimes just being an artist of color or an African-American artist and being in public is enough, for goodness sake. Sometimes it's enough to just be there, playing, in the example you gave, playing your Mozart and playing it beautifully and with great accomplishment. And being Black, sometimes that's enough already, right? Or sometimes you feel, well, I need to play something by Florence Price, who was a wonderful African-American composer from, many, many years ago, or whatever. So watch out, I say to artists out there, watch out for being forced to move your art into commentary on what's happening in the news. That's not always your job.
Okay. So I know we're at time. I don't know if there are any more questions, Michelle.
I think we'll have to end it here, but it has been just a wonderful conversation. I know we all hate to end it, but we're going to stop there. Thank you so much to everyone. It has been wonderful. Thank you to Ms. Sherricka Day for being our moderator today. Thank you to Mr. Roberto Mighty. Thank you to Mr. Kamau Marshall and to Ms. Valerie Richardson. Thank you also to the viewers for your attention, your engagement, and your questions. Thank you so much for contributing to our program. I'd also like to thank the CSU Libraries team, Emily Cruz, Julie Calder, Alan Karras, and our UITS team for your support in making this event possible. Please stay tuned for future programming. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.